Lakeville Planning Commission meeting to order. If you rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Ms. Erickson, will you take the roll, please? Traffus?
Here.
Duckworth? Here. Kaluza?
Here.
Zimmer? Here. Ike? Here. Swaney?
Here.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes of our July 17th Planning Commission meeting minutes. Does anyone have any changes? Great, we will be able to let those stand as listed. Next item on the agenda, item number 4, is announcements. Ms. Jensen?
Thank you, Chair. There are 2 handouts before you this evening. One is the Parks, Recreation, and Natural Resources Committee motions regarding the tree preservation ordinance from their meeting last evening. And then the other is an email comment regarding agenda item number 7 for tradition development. And then I do also want to just note that there will not be a public hearing for agenda item number 6 as that application was withdrawn by the applicant.
Thank you very much. All right, we don't have 3 public hearings. We have 2. And just to let you know, if you'd like to speak on the items tonight, there's a sign-up sheet at the back. Please be advised that Planning Commission meetings are televised live on cable television and streamed online at lakevillemn.gov, as well as recorded and posted online for later viewing. If you'd like to provide a comment, as I said, sign up, and then at the time of that public hearing, we'll have people come to the podium, speak into the microphone, stating your full name and address for the public record. And let's see. The audio system does not pick up any comments from the seating area. All comments and questions must be made at the podium during the public hearing portion of the hearing. And we always try to give everyone an equal opportunity, so if we need to limit comments, we may have to do so. Staff will monitor any call-ins to let us know if there's anyone that's going to speak virtually. Thank you for that. And then our first item is City of Lakeville consideration of amendments to Title 10 and Title 11 of the City Code relating to tree preservation. We'll have a presentation by Director Tina Goodroad. We had a public hearing on this item already, so we'll just have an opportunity to hear an update. Thank you, Ms. Goodroad.
Thank you, Chair, members of the Commission. As you recall, the July 17th Planning Commission meeting, we did review the tree preservation ordinance, and there was a couple of things that the Commission had some questions on, decided to open and close the public hearing, held comment, but then asked that the item be tabled. Since that time, community development staff and forestry staff have been working together to come to some revisions on a couple of the points that you raised at the meeting. I'm going to hand things over to our city forester, Zach Jorgensen, who will review those changes.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Tina. Thanks, Commission. Zach Jorgensen, City Forester. Thanks for having us in again. I've got a brief presentation. I'll go through it, and I'll just touch on the highlights, especially the changes that were made since the last meeting. We've got quite a bit of information in there, but really just looking at what this ordinance seeks to do, providing a more detailed tree preservation ordinance for the city. As far as the scope goes, we had talked about this a bit last time, but the types of development that are include new development at the time of subdivision approval, new development for site plans, applications for building permits for infill development, and then also applications for building permits for reconstruction or expansion. And that's the one we had quite a few questions on last time and that we addressed again, hence the asterisk here. So on the next slide, we did go back and considered, the questions that were brought up here, the conversations with council at the work sessions, as well as the purpose statement of the ordinance, and made a few revisions to the ordinance that are outlined here. Looking to change it to apply only to properties that are an acre or greater, not including right-of-way or easements on those properties. Only applying it to heritage trees, which again are trees that are hardwood deciduous, or 30 inches or greater in diameter. So things like cottonwoods, silver maples wouldn't apply in this case. We're looking at those higher value trees. Also changing the replacement requirements. Before we had a much larger replacement requirement for these types of properties. We've changed that just to 2 trees per heritage tree removed under this in respect to the size of the properties and the impacts as well. And then we also added a note that for these types of properties, preservation plans could be prepared by the owner themselves, since they're familiar with the property itself. So certainly can use a professional to do that work, but we decided to open that up as well. Running through everything else, again, the thresholds is applied. We're looking at 40 and 70% removal thresholds for residential districts, 40%, industrial, mixed use, commercial, 70%. And then heritage trees, again, those hardwood deciduous over 30 inches, a 0% removal threshold on those for the purpose of the math. We've got the math here, which Grace did a good job presenting some examples of last time, how we determine the number of trees that are required for replacement. Basically, any trees that are removed over that threshold do require replacement for a new development. We've got exemptions in there, listing things like dead trees, trees that are controlled under the Shade Tree Pest Ordinance, trees that are listed as invasive, or as planted as part of a commercial operation, so think nurseries, orchards, things like that, or within the right-of-ways of major collector or arterial streets, things that developers can't control. So those would be exempted. As far as the math end for replacement, basically we've got another calculation. We've broken it down into common trees, coniferous trees, and hardwood deciduous. And then we've got a fraction of replacement of diameters is removed that have to be replaced by that. So if you take down a significant tree, let's say a common tree, a box elder, you replace 1/8 the inches removed. If it's an oak, you replace half the diameter is removed. And then heritage trees, again, those large trees, we've got 100% replacement requirement on those. And then one other note I'll make here that we've changed is under the replacement or the fee in lieu, we did lower that dollar amount. We reviewed, again, initially we had looked at the plant appraisal guides, replacement costs, guidance for that, and then we also started to look at some of the replacement costs that we're seeing from development and adjusted that down. So instead of being $550 per tree, it's around $440, so $175 an inch of replacement. So about a 20% reduction in that. Again, we've got the removal prior to development. If an area of 2 acres or more within 2 years of development has been removed, that does require replacement. Basically 1 tree for every 300 square feet of trees removed on a property. And then we've got a couple incentives. If you're preserving heritage trees or significant woodlands, which are defined as an area 2 acres or larger, we do provide a credit to knock down the number of replacement trees required, and that's at a 2-to-1 ratio. So for every inch of tree that you save, protect, you get 2 inches of credit for that, up to 50% of the required replacements. And then just as a quick note, we've got the whole huge table that we did as a comparison, but just pointing out that a lot of communities have very similar removal thresholds, replacement requirements, et cetera. So. And that's it for the presentation. So
Great.
if there's any questions.
Commissioners have any questions on this? Commissioner Kaluza.
I don't have a question. I just want to thank city staff for the work that you've done on this, and definitely my concerns, particularly related to kind of what happens for expansion of existing developments if a single-family homeowner wanted to add on to their house. Addressing that by kind of bumping it up to 1 acre, I think that is great, and I think this is a very well-crafted ordinance. And our job as the Planning Commission isn't, we're not the deciders. We don't have election certificates. That's a city council. But our job is to send to them the very best possible ordinances, and I think that we've done that, and city staff have done a great job on this, so I appreciate all the work.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I'd just like to thank staff for. Sorry? Just like to say, thank staff for taking into account their comments and adjusting the ordinance as that would take care of those concerns. Very much appreciated.
Madam Chair,
Please go ahead, Commissioner Traffus.
Mr. Jorgensen, quick question about the changes that you made, particularly with respect to the currently developed properties, the homeowners. I think last time we really focused in on those small lots in downtown Lakeville and difficulty that those homeowners would have in the case of an addition. Could you say a few words about why you chose the 1 acre? There aren't 1 acre lots downtown, so that's my point. Why 1 acre?
Yeah, we thought it was an area or a size that would address some of the concerns we have about woodlands, right? So we're trying to preserve woodlands. Those lots can have significant trees on them, a significant amount of woodland on them. Also, they allow for replanting more so than other properties, and so it's easier to get those trees back in and actually accomplish the goals of the ordinance. We also looked at some other communities to see what they were doing, and a lot of communities that do this kind of thing also look at area size as one of the basis of how they define a property that requires a tree preservation plan.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
And if there are no other comments, then I think we're ready for a motion.
Madam Chair, I'd motion to recommend to City Council approval of the ordinance and amendments to Title 10 subdivisions and Title 11 zoning of the City Code related to tree preservation.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Ms. Erickson, will you take the roll?
Duckworth? Aye. Kaluza?
Aye.
Zimmer?
Aye.
Height?
Aye.
Swaney?
Aye.
Traffus?
Aye.
Thank you.
Sounds pretty good.
Thank you.
Moving forward. Thank you so much for coming back, Mr. Jorgensen, and working on that. As stated by our staff, the ETS South Metro application was withdrawn, so we'll move on to number 7, the Tradition Development. This is a motion to recommend to City Council. It's a public hearing, to consider the application of Tradition Development for a comprehensive plan to bring approximately 390 acres of land into the current municipal urban service area, also known as MUSA, and a comp plan amendment to re-guide properties from a variety of density changes, as stated in the agenda, which are available at the back of the room. And we will have Mr. Stutz is going to start us off with a presentation on this.
Good evening, Chair Zimmer and members of the Commission. I'm Todd Stutz. I'm with Tradition Development Corporation. In addition, here is Adam Mickelson. He's a Chief Financial Officer also for Tradition Development Corporation. And how do you make it go forward? Just here? Okay, or the mouse, okay. I'm still in the process of programming my VCR at home, so I apologize for the brief delay. Again, our development team consists of a number of individuals, all located here in the city of Lakeville at Tradition Development Corp. And those individuals are listed, and they'll have an active role in this proposed development. We began looking at this property approximately 9 months ago. Even though this is our first opportunity to appear before the commission, we've been working with staff, we've been working with adjoining property owners. It all started with us being contacted by the Leonard's family. The Leonard's family owns roughly 200 acres as part of this overall development area. And they had a desire as a family to sell their property. And so they approached us, and so therefore over a period of time, we were in a position in March to close on that property. So the 390 acres, our company currently owns 200 acres of that, which was the Leonard's property. In addition to that, we control roughly 40 acres under purchase agreement, and we're working jointly with Jay Blanchard and his firm for roughly 50 acres. So there's currently roughly about 290 of the total acres of the 390 acres that we either control or are working jointly with a property owner on. In addition to that, we reached out to the surrounding property owners once we purchased the Leonard's property and asked if they wanted to join with us in looking at a comprehensive plan amendment that did two things: changed the Metropolitan Urban Service staging area, and in addition to that, changed the current land use designation for some of the property. And so there's a total of, now at this point, a total of 12 different property owners that represent 21 different properties. They're part of the application that you see in front of you. Ultimately, as we go through the process, some of them may join us on the plan unit development process, which we're intending on to follow that path. Some may just choose not to develop their property of the 390. I can say that we would probably more than likely have at least 290 acres as part of a plan unit development application that we'll make at some point. In addition to that, there's an AUR, which I'll mention here, which is an alternative urban area-wide review, which, because of the number of units that we proposed within the 390 acres, we meet the threshold as established by the Environmental Quality Board, and so therefore it would be mandatory to go through that process. And even within that, again, roughly the 390 total acres, if they choose not to participate in our plan unit development process, we would still prepare an alternative urban area-wide review for all of the property. So at some point, if they chose to develop, that environmental review has already been completed. One of our commitments to the staff in our early conversations is we would look at this area comprehensively or as a whole, rather than looking on it a piecemeal basis. It would have been very easy to submit an application just dealing with the Leonard's 200 acres versus the total 390 acres, but we felt that it was in everyone's best interest as we look at it as a whole versus pieces. And so that was our initial commitment to staff, and we've done that. Again, we've reached out over the last, we'll say roughly 6 months, to the various property owners that have joined the Leonard's property to solicit their participation, and they are either signed as an application for just the MUSA expansion or signed as an applicant for change in land use as well as the MUSA staging change. And so you'll see that again as part of our application and what we've submitted. One of the things that we've been actively involved in, again, really over the last 6 to 9 months, is we've been under contract with a number of consultants, and those consultants are preparing, let's say, background information on existing conditions, and those existing conditions will inform ultimately the plan unit development application that we'll make at some point. And that information includes topography, it includes tree survey, it includes wetland delineation, it includes geotechnical information, all that, again, which we'll use in our preparation ultimately of a plan unit development application. One of the things to keep in mind too, there's a lot of people here this evening, I recognize that, but this is really early on in the process. There will be a lot of steps. There'll be a lot of opportunities for community engagement through neighborhood meetings that we'll have, especially during the PUD process as well as the AUR process. So again, this is the first step in a long journey that this development will be involved in. For those who are not familiar with Tradition Development Corp., obviously just down the road is Spirit of Engine Farms. Here in Lakeville, it's 512 acres, has roughly 1,369 total housing units, as well as commercial. That development follows what we'll call traditional neighborhood architectural design and development standards. I will say that that's one of the things that we look at in terms of setting the stage or using as a template as part of that PUD for the proposed development that ultimately hopefully will occur on this property. In addition to that, Huntersburg, Victoria, which is a number of our developments that's currently under construction, that's 112 acres out in Victoria. Again, another master planned unit development. It consists of roughly 231 single-family homes, and again, also follows traditional neighborhood architectural design and development standards. I don't probably have time tonight to explain what that means as a definition, but for those of you who have not driven through Spirit of Brandon Farms, you'll see that that neighborhood looks different. You know, setbacks are smaller, right-of-ways are smaller, it's very connected in terms of pedestrian activity, bike activity, and it's very, again, it's definitely different than you'll see in a typical development. These are just some photos that are included in, this is Spirit of Brandon Farms. Again, a variety of different housing types, definitely strong community amenities in terms of clubhouses. This is Hunter's Brook, again, strong community amenities as far as the clubhouse is concerned. Again, very strong architectural guidelines. And so as far as when we're looking at this, and again, this is early on, but stepping back, so the extent that, again, there's 390 acres that you're considering this evening for the two different comp plan amendments. If we proceed forward, hopefully we'll have 390 acres as part of the overall PUD. For sure, I would say at a minimum we'll have 290 acres, and that we basically are looking at it, just so everyone knows, really again looking at it using Spirit of Brandon Farm as a template. And then also having a wide range of distinctive neighborhoods of homes, different sizes and types, with a variety of, again, price points to really appeal to a bunch of different lifestyles as well as demographics. We will provide extensive connected open space, which preserves existing wetlands and ponds. The great thing about this property that we're looking at within the 390 acres is there's a lot of wetlands, a lot of natural amenities. And as part of that, of course, you just recently adopted, at least proposed to be adopted, a tree preservation ordinance. We were one of the developers that responded to that original ordinance draft. We definitely are supportive of the city tree preservation ordinance, and look forward to that going to the hopefully the city council and for their adoption. Because of this property having a lot of stands of existing trees and woodlands, it's something definitely that will be a great case in terms of how this might apply to that development. I would expect that we probably will exceed the 40% threshold as far as removal is concerned, but we look forward to working on that. And as I mentioned, we've already done a lot of that background. We already have on the Leonard's property a complete tree survey. There's a lot of trees on that property. We're going to work very closely, again, with the city and trying to protect as many of those trees as possible. But I would expect that we'll exceed the 40%. Talked about distinctive homeowner association amenity areas and connected trail systems. Also, that would be part of the development. But then also, again, using Spirit of Brandon Farm as a template, using the development standards as well as the architectural guidelines. They're part of Spirit. I don't know if any of you were part of that process. That process occurred back in 2005, the adoption of that. But I think you'll find that was a very useful document for Spirit of Brandon Farms and the ultimate development of that property over a 20-year period of time. We talked about the total of 390 acres. Net acres would be 316 acres, and that would be taking out the existing wetlands that we used based upon the based upon the national wetland inventory that's available. Net residential acres is 253. Why is that important? Because the Met Council, as part of this comp plan amendment, will be watching very closely of how we develop that 253 acres. Currently, they require 3 units per acre, and that is going to go 3.5 as part of their 2050 comp plan. And so we're currently looking at this developing at a minimum at 3.5 units per acre. In addition to that, there's net school, we'll say commercial areas, primarily United Christian Academy, is part of that. A portion of their property is part of this application, which is roughly 63.18 acres. Property owners, as I mentioned, there's a total of 21 properties or 12 different property owners, some who are represented here this evening. And then Tradition Development Corporation, we currently own 200.28 acres as of this morning, and now we own 210.28 acres as of this afternoon with the acquisition of additional property. So didn't get a chance to update that yet. So the requested action that I know staff will go through with you as part of their presentation, really two items, and that all, again, the 12 property owners have varying interests in each one of these, but all of them signed applications, and that's basically to amend the 2040 Comprehensive Plan MUSA Staging Plan is the first one, and again, staff will go in more detail on that. And then the second one being amend the 2040 Comprehensive Plan Land Use Plan. with proposed land use designations, which are shown by the document that you have in front of you, which is right there. And so you can see the Leonard's property, which is roughly the 200 acres, which is sort of in the central location. The United Christian Academy, which I think pretty much everyone knows, is roughly the 60 acres that they have out along, we'll call it Keokuk and Keswick Loop. And then in addition to that, other properties that surround it. I mentioned the Jay Blanchard property, or affiliations of him, is the property generally to the north of the Leonard's property. And so that is the plan that we did. When I will note on this, not all the land uses are being changed. If it says current land use, that is currently guided for that property as part of the 2040 comp plan. That is the current guiding. The other properties, if it doesn't say current land use, are ones that we're looking at re-guiding from their current use, which is definitely typically a residential reserve. As I said, we're early on in this process. This is just a very sort of summary of the types of steps that we'll be taking, provided we go forward and receive approval from the council based upon your recommendation, which we hope will be approval. Basically, is after that, that we submitted to the Met Council for their approval. Then in addition to that, we'll start the AEUR process. Again, there's certain thresholds, and I'll get into those in just a second. And based upon looking at the whole 390 acres, we would be subject to an AEUR process, which is by itself is a 9-month process. And it looks at all the types of things that you would normally look at, from wastewater to water to environmental conditions, storm ponds, looks at all traffic, a lot of different things that basically will take some period of time to go through. And again, that alone is a 9-month process, which has public hearings as part of that process as well. So that is a 9-month process by itself. We expect that the city, hopefully, again, based upon the results of this evening and the council, and also at the council meeting, is authorization of a trunk sanitary sewer project construction, which would extend the current trunk sewer, which is located on the east side of 35, extended along alignment of 215th underneath 35, and then to serve this property roughly along the existing right-of-way of 215th. And then, of course, your normal sort of PUD process, PUD sketch plan approval, PUD development stage approval, and PUD final stage approval, and ultimately final plat approval for what we'll call phase 1. So if you put that all on a calendar and you look at that, and again, this is making some assumptions relative to approvals, so this would all sort of get pushed out. But basically, governmental approval is occurring in 2005 and 2026. Physical development start, meaning utilities and streets, basically starting in 2026. And then 2027, that for phase 1 will be completed, starting model homes or homes in 2027. And then 2028 through 2040 would be our expected duration of home construction and additional development phases. Again, I mentioned that Spirit of Brandon Farms was originally planned to last for 7 years. We sort of had the Great Recession in there, which didn't help, but that development took 20 years. So we're looking at, from pretty much today, a 15-year project, of which 12 years will be dedicated to building out the home. So it's not something that's going to happen tomorrow. It's going to happen over a long period of time. I think you'll see that with a lot of the communities we do. We're interested more in the quality than necessarily the pace. And so we're going to try to do something that's unique and different, and sometimes that takes longer. So that's what we're proposing to do. We mentioned the AUR, and it's important because that's sort of the next step, and that's really a long period of time, again, 9 months. And so basically the site contains roughly 250 net residential acres. Our preliminary sort of sketch plans that we've done, which are just conceptual at this point, has roughly 1,200 housing units. And at 1,200 housing units, basically if you're over 1,000 units as far as detached, or over 1,500 units with attached, that's their thresholds, or it's basically a quotient, so it's a math calculation. If you're over 1, if you do all that math, which would basically be 600 detached and 600 attached, that requires what would be either an EIS or, as an alternative urban area-wide review. So we sort of fall into that category. And again, that's based upon the total 390 acres and based upon the 253 net residential acres. And so we get down below that, or we do a smaller project, then really it would be up to the city of whether or not they would require this. And again, even if a property is not acquired and brought into the PUD process, they would have an AER that would be in place. So in the future, they would not be required to do an independent EAW or EIS or AUR. One of the things that you'll be asked and we'll be talking about is an AUR requires you to figure out what development scenarios that you want to be studied. And usually there's a low range and a high range that's studied to look at the overall environmental impacts on that particular piece of property. And then as part of that, then there's a mitigation plan and put it in place in terms of what needs to be done relative to traffic, what needs to be done relative to the environment, all those issues. And again, there's definitely will be opportunities for public engagement along the way as part of that 9-month process. Some additional development considerations that we've really been talking about through the last, I'll say, 6 to 9 months is wastewater. We talked about the extension of the existing trunk sanitary sewer, which does have capacity to serve this development. Transportation, there's been a conversation going on with Dakota County in terms of where they would like to see that connection occur on 210th Street. The current connection is proposed to be roughly a half-mile spacing from the intersection at 35 and 210th. So it would be directly to the west of that, and that would be the proposed entrance to this development. And the extension of basically, it would pretty much be the extension northerly of Lakeville Avenue, and I'm sure I said that wrong, but it would follow generally that alignment. There's a lot of streets out here that are hard to say. Then parks and open space, consideration of potential neighborhood park on the property. That's one of the things that is in your comp plan. Additional comp plan guidance also says is that there should be a greenway constructed that basically connects the Soberg waterfowl protection area to the future connection to a future connection to Ritter Farm. So a north-south greenway that eventually would serve not only the development but the surrounding area. And then the school district. We had an opportunity earlier this week to meet with the school district to talk about the proposed development, potentially the number of units that would be built on the site, how those housing types might impact their enrollment in the future, and basically it's really dependent upon the types of buyers. And so we gave them some idea of who we thought the various demographics might be. So at one end of the spectrum, baby boomers don't create a lot of children in schools. On the other end of the spectrum, millennials create probably a few more kids. And so we went through all the various product types, again, very early on to give them some idea of what their enrollment projections might look at. Again, not starting until 2028, potentially. And they were very thankful for that. And it's something we'll continue to work with the school district on so they have a really good idea of what type of housing is being built, when it's being built, and how that might impact their future enrollment. And then United Christian Academy, we've been engaged with a conversation now. We've had a number of meetings with the United Christian Academy as they work to get their school up and going. And so we're definitely, there's a new opportunity here in terms of providing connections of the school to this proposed development area, which didn't exist before because it was basically the Leonard's Farm. And so we look forward to continuing to work with the United Christian Academy to get them going, but then also how they might fit into the overall development. That's my part of the presentation. Hopefully you found it to be useful. And so.
We appreciate that very much.
Okay.
We'll bring you back up after we hear from staff for
Yep.
Responding to questions.
Thanks, chairs and members of the commission.
Thank you so much.
Thank
This
you.
is really helpful.
Thank you, Chair, members of the commission. Thank you, Mr. Stutz. Yep, there's my presentation. All right, so I'll touch on a couple of similar things that Mr. Stutz did, but also just go into a little bit more detail with a little bit more deeper dive overview into the comprehensive plan. But as you can see on the screen, the outline is in red are the different properties that are involved in this request. The proposal is for a comprehensive plan MUSA change or a staging change amendment as well as a land use amendment and then rezoning amendments for and that is due to maintaining consistency with the comprehensive plan. As Mr. Stutz said, this is the first step in a very lengthy process to create this new residential development. And again, through the meetings that we have had with the folks from Tradition, they have very much committed to bringing to this area a development parallel to Spirit of Branch and Farms. So that would, again, include that variety of lot sizes. It would include a variety of densities to attract a variety of buyers, quality residential construction, open space, and development amenities. So again, as he said, they've assembled 5 properties. There are 16 other surrounding properties that are part of the amendment for a total of the 390 gross acres or 316 net acres. Mr. Stutz showed this map or this plan, brought this up early in my presentation for the purposes of this conceptual plan is what laid out the framework or the foundation for the request for the land use changes. This is a conceptual plan to identify the areas that it felt appropriate for the range and densities that we have. So between low density, low medium, and high density and so forth. This by no means is the plan. They've identified some very early routes for some roadways. We have limitations in terms of the connections at County Road 70 or 215th Street. I want the audience to understand that there are so many more steps to developing this master plan, figuring out transportation. That is part of what that urban or that environmental review will assist with, is to identify the traffic impacts and to help identify the roadway network to serve this neighborhood. Future plans will also lay out the different types of neighborhood nodes, the different types of housing, different types of lot layout, as well as the green space, the protection of the trees, the protection of the wetlands. So by no means is this the plan. This is just a very early step, and a lot of work will be done in the future. So what is a comprehensive plan? It's a long-range planning document that guides future growth and development. We are required by state law to have a comprehensive plan. It's approved by the Metropolitan Council, and we update this every 10 years. The land use element includes a staging plan or a sewer staging plan. That sewer staging plan projects the estimated timing for development based on projected extension of sanitary sewer. Again, it's updated every 10 years. However, amendments can be requested. A property owner, a developer can request amendments not only to the land use and staging, but also other elements due to development proposals. On the screen on your right is the 2040 land use map. We are entering into a phase where we'll start working on our 2050 plan in the next couple of years. Right now, we are operating under our 2040 plan. The land use plan simply outlines how land is intended to be developed or redeveloped over time. Residential land uses, which is all of the yellow, the different shades of yellow, as well as the orange and the brown, those are all different types of residential land uses, and they all have associated minimum densities. We must maintain 3 units an acre overall. Moving into the 2050 plan, we'll have to meet 3.5 units per acre overall. This plan, the master plan, and ultimately the PUD will have to meet that minimum threshold of 3.5 units per acre overall. And then zoning must be consistent with the land use. So the proposed land use is to re-guide 16 properties. There is a commercial change to a medium-high density, a rural density to low density, a rural density to low medium, and a rural density to medium high. So the top of the screen is the existing land use. The bottom screen is the proposed land use. 5 parcels have no land use change. So the commercial to medium, this is an area, if I can get my mouse to work, this property, it's split guided. Never a good idea. This commercial area is being proposed to be the same as the opposite side of the property, to medium high density. It's quite off the beaten path from a major roadway to serve effectively as commercial, and so that request is to change that. The rural density, this land use designation is within the urban reserve area, which is part of the staging plan, and this is an interim use until utilities are extended. It does have a minimum of 1 per 10 acre minimum until such time utilities are provided. And that is basically to ensure that development doesn't happen, that cannot be developed in an efficient and orderly manner when sewer services are provided to the property. So it's technically a holding zone or an interim type of land use. So we have a lot of that rural density residential in this location as well as in this location. Some of that is proposed to change to low density residential, which would then have up to 3 units an acre, or in the future 3.5. Rural to low and medium density, or low medium, and that has a density threshold of 4 to 5 units an acre, and then up to the medium high of 5 to 9 units per acre. So that, in a nutshell, is the 3 different types of land use categories that are proposed for this change. And again, that corresponds to the concept plan that we're working under. The staging plan is a framework, again, for when land will develop based on estimated extension of infrastructure. The map on the right shows all the area in white is essentially the current MUSA. So this is all the area that's actively developing without any amendment necessary. Then there's Area A, Area B, and Urban Reserve. Urban Reserve is a designation that anticipates future development when utilities are available. Amendments considered as infrastructure is expanded or planned, and that is the situation that we're under in this project. So the amendment proposes to bring 11 properties from expansion area B, those are highlighted in the purple, and then 10 properties from urban reserve into the current MUSA, which is the blue. Infrastructure extension is planned for next year east of I-35 to bring sewer along 215th Street. This project will also include, on the east side, water, storm, and road improvements. This project will also include an extension under I-35 to serve this amendment area, thus the need to bring the property into the current MUSA. This same improvement will serve approximately 270 acres of new industrial development east of I-35, and that is one of the reasons for the application after this item. Following all of that, the zoning is required to be consistent with the land use. So again, on the top of the screen is the existing zoning. So that area that was under the commercial land use needs to be rezoned to a corresponding zoning district. So we have a C3 general commercial district moving to an RM3 or medium density residential district. We have RA areas that are being re-guided to low. That zoning designation is proposed at RS4. We have rural residential land use moving to low medium, and that is the RST2. And then finally, rural to medium density residential, and that is the RM3. So we have the corresponding land uses that, or corresponding zoning that fits within the land uses. So again, Mr. Stutz laid out a more detailed timeline. Excuse me. We will, this will require, obviously, recommendation from this body, go to City Council. Then we need to submit this application to the Met Council. Preparation of the AUAR will start probably shortly after that, along with the very detailed master planning that will definitely include neighborhood meetings, participation from this body. Ultimately, preliminary platting, final platting in phases, and development start. I said later, 26, because I'm probably not as optimistic as Mr. Stutz. Things do take long, but it's possible that grading could start in 2026. We believe that the improvement of 215th Street to bring the sewer, that is going to take a full year. On the east side of I-35, where that project will start, there is some of that sewer is going to be very deep. It's going to be a very big project, and it's going to take some time before it gets all the way to the interstate. That is all that I have. I stand for any questions that you may have, and I know, I'm sure there are people anxious to speak at the public hearing.
Excellent, thank you so much. That was, I think, really helpful. And as it's a public hearing, we'll probably take the public hearing comments, and then after we close public hearing, then we'll ask commissioners for input and put some questions to staff and to Mr. Stutz. So as I stated, it is a public hearing. I do have a list of folks that signed up, and we have quite a few, so if we can, be sure that we are bringing new ideas and not reiterating something that someone else has brought forward, and we'll try to keep you around 3 minutes so that we can get through all of the folks that have signed up. And please note that any questions that are asked, staff will take the time to note those so that we can bring those up and address those questions. So, as I stated, this is a public hearing, and we'll just have, we've got people listed, and please come forward. The first one listed is Beth Loudon. Thanks so much. Just please state your name and address for the record.
Sure. So, good evening, Planning Committee members. I'm Beth Loudon. I live at 12330 210th Street West. I've lived there for 23 years. I'm here to oppose changing or amending the 24 comprehensive plan and zoning. I own 2 homes. One of them directly borders the Leonard's property. The 2040 plan was developed thoroughly, thoughtfully, strategically to plan the growth for the city of Lakeville. In due respect, the proposal of the development and the adjacent parcels is premature. There are several reasons I'd like to point out to the committee for your consideration on a serious decision. This is not just to benefit our family, our neighbors that are here, or it's for also the community of Lakeville. I'm helping you figure out your problems because I've identified at least 6 of them that the city can work on the planning. The first is the traffic concerns. When Dakota County widened County Road 70 from 35W going west, it went from 2 lanes to 4 lanes, but it stopped 0.5 of a mile to the border of Dakota County and Scott County. The remaining 2 lanes are exactly what the traditional proposal tonight is for those 2 lines coming into the property to get to the property through 210th Street. Those are exactly the properties that are only 2 lane for County Road 70. There are no turning lanes, and so, for example, there's also, as you go up the hill from Blanchard's, it goes from 2 lane up the hill to past Laredo, goes down the hill and around the curve is that 0.5 mile that's only 2 lane. People coming in and out of this development would have no way to turn without stopping traffic, which is what I've had to do for the last 23 years. So I make sure that I brake, signal, and stop on the brakes to make sure that no one hits me when I stop traffic to turn into my driveway. The second issue is the wetlands and the watershed. When Dakota County added bike paths along widening County Road 70, the bike paths did extend past our area and into Scott County. However, when they did that, they caused flooding into my second property, right off of County Road 70. I contacted the Dakota County, the city of Lakeville, DNR, Jacobson survey came out to learn that nobody really wanted to take responsibility for that wetland right behind my home. There is no way to control it. There's no gate to control that. That watershed then continues down through my property and my neighbor's property to wetlands that are right behind our home that are not indicated on anywhere in this map. In fact, there's several wetlands not mentioned or showed on this map. The city owns that piece of property. I've given you the PI number so that you can look it up. So it's a problem, and there's a lot of wetlands. It was mentioned, and there's a lot more than what's pictured on there. The third issue is the habitat for wildlife. The northern part of Leonard's property is heavily wooded, which is why we don't see any neighbors. The front part of that area is not wooded. It's wide open. So your trees that you're going to be looking at are all at the back of the property, which is the back of my property and my neighbors. It's full of deer, turkey, even the wood ducks are back, which hadn't been for years. When the development by Goodwill was built, they removed hundreds of trees. All of that wildlife came through our yards and into the back into Leonard's. And during that process, in 1 week, there was 4 deer killed with that development. The fourth issue is the tree preservation I've already started to talk to. I would hope that we would look differently than what was just presented because most of the trees are all at the back of the property. So there's a lot of acreage that doesn't even have trees, that was open pasture for his cattle, and that would give a lot of privacy, would be taken away if you take 40% of those trees away. The fifth thing is the school district. I'm not speaking for the district, but I'm using my knowledge to speak to the issues in the district. The city district are not more, they need to be strategic and aligned moving forward. Over the years, they have been. In fact, the bond issues would be one time for the city, one time for the school district. But most of the housing has happened is on the north east corner of Lakeville. Those schools are now full. And as you cross over to the west side of 35W, there's only one elementary school, Orchard Lake, and that's up off of County Road 46. So this would be a burden to the school district to be able to do this development at this time because there are no other schools in that area, or it's going to cost the district a lot of money in bus transportation. Building a school takes at least 3 to 5 years. They talk about things not starting until 26 or 27. The school district is going to need 28 to 30 to even address this subject. This November, there is no bond referendum for a new school. They're just trying to get their operating levy passed so they can keep operating the schools that they have. Since 2018, we've had one referendum after another, either the city with the parks, which are beautiful, or the schools, which are wonderful, but the school district cannot keep up right now. And as you noticed in the report, they do not support this. I just want to make sure that you saw that in writing at this time. The other thing, number 6, I just want you to be strategic in your thinking. If you look to the north neighbor, you've got Burnsville. They're struggling having enough students into their schools and trying to figure out how to close schools. Prior Lake just voted last month to close one of their elementaries and sell their district office and move into it. They don't have enough students. Farmington is right now trying to sell, and has been this last year or so, acreage so that they can pay $18 million worth of infrastructure. I'm aware that Lakeville Schools is closer to $70, $80 million in deferred maintenance. I was part of that 10-year plan. We have to be conscientious and be smart about how we build our school district to be able to support our kids. The second newest school in Lakeville is Lakeville South, built in 2005. It's now 20 years old. And the next 5 to 10 years, there's a lot of money that has to go back into Lakeville South to be able to get the mechanical done and upgraded, the parking lots upgraded. So it's a huge burden to the school district right now to maintain what they've got. So I ask you guys, please slow down. Follow your well-thought-out 2040 comprehensive plan and zoning. The traditional development knew when they purchased Lawrence property what it was zoned and that it was outside the MUSA when they purchased it. So I like the idea that they got till 2040. I think that's what they should zero in on, is a 2040 development, not next year. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Next on the list, and I'm not going to be able to read all of these. If you know your order, feel free to come up. Steve Helenek. Thank you so much.
Good evening. Thanks for listening. My name is Steve Helwick. My wife and I live at 12430 210th Street West. If you look at Exhibit E, all the way to the west on the borderline of Scott County, the first property is my neighbor Larry Jones's, and the second property is ours. And our concern is that for future, and I can't remember reading the bottom little line there, but we're not included in the MUSA plan at this point. But the proposed road, if I'm correctly reading it, goes right over the top of our house. And at what point during this project or phase is the expansion come to where we possibly could be eminent domain? Because you need access to that development, or you do not want to spend the funding to tar the road that goes through it the back way. And so our concern is, in a 2-year, 4-year, 10-year plan, what does our future hold? When we bought the place, cleaned it up, it was pretty much a dump, and we have a relatively nice place in the city limits, never complained and paid our taxes. And so where do we fall in the mix of changing the MUSA, letting traditions come in, and then in the future, without Jake buying us or traditions buying us, where do we sit? And is there a plan for that road somewhere in a plan that we're not seeing, and at what date. So those are our concerns and questions.
All right, I think we've got those noted. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Hope you hit a hole in one today. Next on the list, it looks like Lee and Diane Soberg. And if you don't want to speak, that's okay too. You don't have to. Next up, I really can't read it. Lynette, maybe? And that might be, is that someone who just signed up? Next up, Bob Erickson.
Think about it.
Thanks. Thanks so much for the handout, and look forward to your comments. Again, a couple issues have been already raised, so if we can keep moving through it, that would be great. Thank you, Mr. Erickson.
Chair Zimmer, members of the Planning Commission, good evening. I'm Bob Erickson. I reside at 19081 Indale Drive. When I read the legal notice for this public hearing, what caught my attention was the MUSA expansion, and more specifically the significant size of the comprehensive plan amendment. I'm familiar with this property primarily because of my active participation with the United Christian Academy Education Development Program. I've served on that committee since the groundbreaking, so I'm quite familiar with the adjoining property. My comments tonight will be based on the Staff Planning Commission agenda packet, and also will be based on the 2040 Comprehensive Land Use Plan, page 74 in the packet I provided you, the 20-page packet, which references the timing and boundaries of any MUSA expansion will require detailed engineering studies to determine the extent of the improvements required for extension of utilities and staging of construction. This evening you heard from staff regarding the extension, major extension of a sewer trunk, initially to serve properties east of 35 and ultimately west to serve the tradition development. Expansion of the MUSA will occur, this is a quote from the comprehensive plan, expansion of the MUSA will occur when such action is consistent with the goals, policies, and plans of the comprehensive plan and capital improvement plan. I'll go very quickly and I will avoid duplication from previous comments this evening. What I feel is lacking and what is desperately needed, first and foremost, I was surprised that this item didn't appear on this week's Parks and Recreation, Natural Resources agenda. I would have expected that to appear considering the significant natural environment, natural resource impact of any future urban development in the Leonard's property and adjoining properties. I just want to quickly point out that the extension of the major trunk sanitary sewer, currently the current approved capital improvement plan for 2025 to 2029, the utility project section does not include this extension in 2026. And you have copies of all of that provided to you this evening. Transportation was referenced, but I don't know if it was referenced in the context that I think it needs to be referenced, and that is the ingress and egress from this development onto County Road 70. That's Dakota County 70 specifically. Although the project, when it was completed recently, it didn't complete it to the Scott County line. It developed a transition, if you will, in their design. But there are going to be challenges, and there are alternatives that could be considered, like the new subdivision in Scott County immediately to the west. And there's a street in that subdivision that has a sign that said future road extension. And I think that warrants some consideration going forward. I had a resident contact me and said, I'd like to take you on my ATV and share with you the wetlands that have surfaced since the 2003 citywide wetland delineation. And it was pretty apparent to me that that has occurred, and of course that would be the responsibility, as pointed out by Mr. Stutz this evening. But there are concerns that we should see that sooner than after the MUSA expansion comprehensive plan amendment is approved. That it should, in my opinion, professionally speaking, I think it should occur prior to these approvals. Impact on the adjoining federal Soberg wildlife production area, which is 114 acres. That's pretty significant. So there's going to be a wildlife impact, a habitat impact, and in your packet you'll see the City of Lakeville's recently adopted hunting map, which would require major change. And I think that's significant, and the public, I think, should have, I'm sure the federal government, even though the Minnesota Department of DNR enforces hunting on the property, it is federal property and it allows hunting. And I think that is an issue that cannot just be overlooked and waited for an AUAR or waiting for some public comment period when the subdivisions are brought forward, preliminary plats, et cetera, for public comment. Seems like that should occur sooner than later. The ISD 194 school district comment in the staff report, and Mr. Stutz has referenced to that he's spoken with the district, which we appreciate. From my vantage point as a 12-year member of the Lakeville School Board, and I haven't spoken directly with the superintendent, but I just see he's in the audience tonight. I appreciate Michael Bauman being here. From my vantage point, the school board recently went through the need for a minor boundary change because Highview Elementary is already full. And they had to make some adjustments. Our middle school is full, and this development, the timing of this development, is going to have an impact, and the school board and the school community, the parents, taxpayers, I think need to have some involvement in any major, and this is a major comprehensive plan amendment, and it's a major MUSA expansion. I just want to mention, in the last two MUSA expansion efforts by tradition, one at the southeast quadrant of 185th and Judicial, the city council said no to that. Then another attempt to bring give our sanitary sewer to the city of Credit River on Judicial Road across from Belmonte Townhomes to that farm, and the city council said no to that. I was really surprised, as a side note, that there wasn't a work session held on this subject with the city council prior to this public hearing. That's not normal and it's not typical. So the real subject here is strategic growth management. We all talk about Lakeville's always number one in issuing building permits, and there's something to be said for the comfort that gives residents in some respects, but it also challenges our residents in other contexts. What we don't have here this evening is a copy of the letters, if they've been received from the various governmental agencies that have been contacted. I'm disappointed that we don't have that, and that we're at a disadvantage but not knowing if they've responded, and if so, what have they said. Finally, rate of land absorption within the MUSA. This is very significant from my vantage point. The current staff report, the current staff document, which is within the packet you received, shows that there are 539 available lots where a building permit could be issued as of June 30th, 2025. Now let me go to the other MUSA developments that are available in addition to the 539. Current active MUSA development projects. This one by tradition is called Ritter Meadows. It's across from Imagine Theaters, just underway. So the first edition is in the 539. The remaining 177 single-family and townhome lots is in addition to the 539. D.R. Horton recently purchased the Karen property, which is west of Ritter Meadows, across from Imagine Theater, 75 acres in the MUSA. They plan on pursuing approvals and having development in the form of building permits issued in the fall of 2026, 150 single family. That's in addition to 539. Then there's the Preserve of Lakeville, which has been very active and developing very appropriately. There's a new subdivision between 185th and 190th, 26 new lots. They're just doing the grading as we speak. Amelia Meadows, 144 townhome lots, not within the 539. So when you add all of that up, we have 1,034 developable lots in Lakeville in the short term. And I define the short term as 2025 to 2028. Then I thought, I've been I and many other residents have been attending the meetings involving the George Warwick Estate property adjoining Ames Arena, adjoining Lakeville North High School, adjoining Antlers Park, 49 acres in the MUSA. Not even in my 1,000 plus, because there's been no application. There has been a work session that drew a lot of interest, and that interest prompted the estate holders to revisit that development. Sincerely and respectfully of the work that you do and the work that others have done preceding tonight's meeting in the form of a comprehensive plan. And I provided the comprehensive plan cover document, and it identifies those of you that previously served in developing and adopting that, including Pat Kaluza, who served as the chair of the Planning Commission at that time. with that, I just want to close with a personal thought and a recommendation, and that is I believe the proposal has merit, but I believe it's totally premature and lacking the information that the comprehensive plan clearly states is necessary for a development of this magnitude to move forward. So that, in that context, I would recommend that this be tabled, providing the developer, if the developer in fact owns all the property that's being represented, or is it just waiting for approvals before they can close? I don't know the answer to that. I don't know if it's that significant, but maybe they do own the Lenart's property free and clear, but I don't think they own all the property they're representing, or that's being represented this evening. And to me, the community, the school district, the adjoining residents have an interest, and there's a lot at stake here, and it warrants appropriate studies as the comprehensive plan requires. And I believe that it would yield a very favorable, could provide a very favorable outcome, but it just seems like we're out of sequence, and I don't understand as a professional, past professional in this process, that why this seems to be pursued and why we were wanting to get this comprehensive plan and MUSA expansion done in advance of the needed detailed information required and needed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Erickson. Next on the list, if you're interested in speaking, is Don and Susan Flanagan.
My concerns have been previously addressed.
Thank you so much, Mr. Flanagan. We have Katie Gross on the list as well.
Hello. Yes, I'm Katie Gross. My husband and I, we own the property. We live on 210 Penn Avenue, so it's actually the original Soberg land. Our house directly faces the waterfowl. Then it will also be hugely impacted by this development. I'm just really gonna just reiterate, it won't be long, but just like what Beth Loudon said, Bob Erickson, that this feels a little premature. There's been so much development in Lakeville in the last 5 years, and I have been involved in the school board in the last couple years, and one huge struggle is that we cannot house all the kids that are coming in. And it's been it's a major problem. As you know, Highview's already over populated, and now we have all these developments that aren't even completed yet. There's a new one on 29 south of Amazon that's going up that is still Lakeville School District, which then there's also tons more kids coming in, which is great, but it's a problem we're not ready for. And it's also, there's a 2-year lack in finances, so this just adds a lot of extra pressure to Lakeville residents to have another development coming in. Like Bob Erickson had said, I think there's, you guys know better than I, but there's 3-4 major developments happening in Lakeville right now, and they're, $400,000 homes, which means they're usually young families coming in. I think Traditions underestimated, or made it because they know it's an issue, that these homes may not have kids that are coming in. There's going to be lots of kids. It's hard to determine how many, but we really need to be thinking about that, because one of the draws for people to come to Lakeville is the schools, right? If you look up there, everyone, even for us, it was like the Lakeville schools are amazing. It's a place we want to look at. We want to keep Lakeville the strong community that it is. We need to, I agree with Bob Erickson about let's table this, and then also not rezoning the density for this area, because it's a real gem in Lakeville to still have this, and you don't have this in the suburbs north of us. And so I just ask that you really consider it, take a lot of thought, because it really does affect every Lakeville citizen impacting the schools that have kids. So, thank you.
Thank you so much. Ms. Gross, there's two more on the list. Mr. Stutz. Excellent, thank you, I get that. And Mr. Bauman. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chair. Michael Bauman, 17876 Fulda Trail, Superintendent, Lakeville Area Schools. Thank you for the opportunity to address this commission. I appreciate it. I want to just say two things. First, thank you, and we do love this community as a school system. My concerns with regard to this, many have already been articulated, but the one that I want to make sure you hear me say is growth is the best problem for Lakeville area schools to have. It's also logistics, logistics, logistics. And the challenge I have with this is the level of detail at this point in time for us to do our predictive analysis to address the logistical challenges that you've heard from a few other people here tonight. We have a density problem or a concentration problem. We have over 1,006 kids as of today going into Century Middle School. Highview is well over 700, somewhere in the 720s. This is a challenge. And the timing of this, we base our stuff on the 2040 plan, and now we're getting some interdiction, or what I call interdiction, and I want to just ask everybody here, maybe take a pause, look deeply at this, because our ability to react to it and the taxpayers' ability to deal with what the growth in the school system will be is a significant challenge and concern, not just for me as a superintendent, but for our whole community. And thank you for your service. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for your time, Mr. Bauman. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak? Please come up to the podium, sir.
Hi, my name is Brian Loudon, and I live at 12310 210th Street West. I'll keep it short. There's a lot of people have come up here, shown concern for a lot of different things. Biggest thing is just keep that in mind. And kind of my question that I want to ask, and obviously this is something just to think about, is why Lakeville? We sit here and we talk about, we have 3 developments going on right now, large developments. We have Farmington that's struggling with a lot of things. Why not Elko? I mean, in reality, we haven't pushed Elko to, we've had their students being able to kind of move up here into our Lakeville community, but we really haven't pushed anything in the sense of, in development and working with cities in correlation with that of, why not have them kind of take some of that burden, some of their money or contributions to that, and have that in that next 40, 50-year plan? Because eventually Elko will need to have school systems. They'll need to start growing in that kind of, especially with this kind of thing. Solberg is also a huge, if you've never been out there to the WMA, it's a great, wonderful place to be. Last fall, they actually cut down a bunch of trees in that property. If you haven't gone and seen it, it's pretty crazy to see that it was a little trail, single walkable trail for deer to kind of walk through, to now it's a giant open area that's not even useful for a whole lot of hunting in that kind of aspect in that front area of the property from the access point. Now going backwards, there's some property lines or some properties that all face Solberg that would be, detrimental on being able to have those people be able to go in there to hunt, to even walk dogs. I mean, I've seen people just go in there, and it's a great little area to just go walk your dog that's private and wide open, and just things to all consider is that. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Looks like we have another person that would like to speak.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. a couple of you I know, Christine, Pat. I was at the fair doing my duties, so I got here late, sorry. I am resident at 124.
Closer, Mr. Jones, can you move a little closer
Okay,
to the microphone?
excuse
That'll
me.
help. Thank you so much.
I'm a resident at 12450 210th Street West, next to Steve, who was up here and talked already. And my concern too is that we go ahead with this planning on it, and we're planning a development and a road through property we don't own yet. I'm kind of curious how we can do that technically, because I've lived in this city now going on 40 years. I've watched Wagon Wheel get developed. I've watched the territory get developed. I watched that 80 acres on the west side of me get developed now. And the amount of traffic that comes down County Road 70 is becoming unacceptable in a sense. Sometimes there's up to 10 cars in a row for us to get even out of our driveway. And the traffic, even though I've talked to the police department, stuff like that, is getting out of hand. These young motorcyclists are doing wheelies down County Road 70. And you can hear them when they turn off 70, how they race past all the cars so they can be the first one down and just go flying through that curve. Now, I know eventually they're going to cause their own problem and stuff down the road. They're responsible. But it is somewhat scary to know that there's not enough patrol in that area. Scott County does come out and does set up their patrols and stuff like that. We used to have a officer, Officer Rowe, that used to come out and he would even sit in my driveway to monitor the traffic, and he wouldn't be there more than 15 or 20 minutes, and the lights were on with speeding and stuff. And now we've got construction out there, developments into Scott County and stuff, so the dump trucks and construction equipment, stuff like that, is all adding to the traffic flow. And I guess that's just a side note to the amount of development. I'll go along with what Bob said. You've got Meadows Ridge development. You've got a huge development down by Dodd, and several of these big developments. And I don't know how, I know the city, slogan is progress, but at what rate and at what cost? That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'll do a final call if there's others that wish to speak.
Hi, my name is Mark Zweber, and I live with my wife, Patsy Ryan, at 12320 210th Street, adjacent to this proposed development. And I do agree with the general gist of this, that it is premature and there's a lot of questions to be answered. But knowing somewhat about tradition development, I think what I've seen, they do very good work, a good quality outfit. So they have a development called Reverence, which is a Lakeville mailing address, but it's it's in Newmarket Township, and you access it through territory. It's directly south of Heritage Links Golf Course. So it looks to me like it's a very successful development, but it's a 2.5 acre well and septic, very high-end houses. And I'm wondering whether Tradition has considered that. I mean, they hold up Branch and Farms, which is as much as you can possibly put on whatever you're buying. And sometimes I think less is better. It just works and it solves a lot of problems. There's less kids for school districts and that. And so I'm sure they've thought about it, because that was a very successful development, and the model seems to work. But maybe it doesn't work here, but I'd just like to know if that was ever considered. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I believe that's all the folks interested in speaking. So So I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing, and that would close the comment period.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of closing the public hearing, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Sorry, or premature with my gavel. All right, the public hearing portion of the hearing is closed, and we would turn to perhaps staff to answer some questions, or if we want to start out with some comments from planning, here staff we'll see if staff can address some of those questions.
Thank you. Chair, members of the commission, a lot of what you heard were comments, more so than questions, and there is a lot that will be evaluated. The AUAR process alone will dig into issues of the wetlands, the transportation, the wildlife, the trees, and just how that will all be managed. The Parks Commission will certainly get involved as the master plan is evaluated for its natural amenities and what could be protected, what kind of park planning could be placed. The timing is good for this master planning because the Parks Department has also kicked off their next master plan, or their next update of their comprehensive plan. So a lot of that will be evaluated. In terms of the school board, I do understand that Mr. Stutz did meet with the superintendent and their staff. They did supply numbers in terms of projected density from the different land use types, the type of housing that comes within these different land use types, and the expectation that the school district could look towards in terms of the number of families. Certainly, there will be continued conversations and work to do as that master plan is developed, and we can speed that communication up in terms of really getting them real numbers to start dealing with what the eventuality for the development might be. Again, a lot of this will get studied in terms of the notes. So I don't have a lot, I didn't take notes of a lot of very specific questions. It appeared to be more just comments, unless I'm missing something that you all noted that I can address or Mr. Stutz can address.
Excellent, thank you so much. Commissioner Kaluza.
One question that I heard, I think Mr. Jones and Mr. Hallenbeck brought it up. Can you talk about the kind of the plan that the applicant supplied showing potential future roads?
Certainly. Yep, and that is, yep, thank you. So again, this is a conceptual layout to help us identify the land uses for this land use change, which is necessary for the preparation of the AOIR because the AOIR studies it based on the land use. What these roadway lines show is the distance limitations that we'll have to the county road. Obviously, if tradition does not acquire property, we are certainly not going to be seeing a road go through someone's property. And nor does his city have any history of eminent domain for such a thing. If that were to happen, if you don't have a willing seller and a willing buyer, the property isn't included. It's as simple as that. And so that is why this is conceptual, especially when it comes to those potential roadway lines. Other alternatives will have to be examined, and there'll be many iterations of the master plan as we go through that process. But thank you. I missed that one.
Thanks.
So one
Commissioner
other,
Ink?
there was a question on the capital plan to extend the trunk.
Yep. And to be honest, I haven't read the CIP. I know it's just been fine-tuned. I know there's a work session coming up at the end of the month. My understanding is the infrastructure improvements are included in that, whether or not the extension under the interchange, because it might be partly city developer project. That could be. I've got a note to check with our city engineer, Zach Johnson. Our department does not get involved in the CIP planning.
Any other comments? I guess I had, there was one.
I can add to that in lieu of Zach Johnson. It is in the proposed CIP that's currently going through its draft. It's not in the approved CIP that was last year for the 5-year plan. So it is showing in our current proposal that has not yet made it through City Council for approvals.
Thank you. You had mentioned, Ms. Goodroad, about wetlands, transportation, wildlife, all addressed through the AUAR process. Can you just let everybody know how that process goes, how long it takes? And
Yep. So there's a, and I'm not an expert. We've had a few completed over the last couple of years, but I am not an expert. We rely on experts. The consultant will hire an approved consultant to prepare the AUAR. It starts with a scoping EAW, which basically that's an environmental assessment worksheet that identifies all the things that have to be studied within this project boundary area. Once that scoping EAW is approved, it goes to council. It's a council action to order the AUAR preparation. And that is a very in-depth document. There's a lot of rules established for the requirement of that document sent by the Environmental Quality Board, or the EQB. Once that is established, including all of the wetland delineations, tree inventory, natural resource inventory, plus an in-depth traffic analysis, all of those different components are compiled. It is submitted for review. We rely on a consultant to do the review for us in addition to our staff so that we have kind of a double set of eyes on it. Then it goes out to an required list based on state statute for evaluation. Folks from MPCA, DNR, there's a whole laundry list of probably 25 folks or departments and agencies that receive it. They make comment. Those comments are taken. Edits are made, another draft is created. Ultimately, through all of that process, it is ultimately blessed and introduced and published on the EQB. More comments are solicited, and then ultimately it gets in front of the City Council. We can incorporate different elements in terms of review for a local public review, planning commission review. That's not always done. It's not part of the required process, but we can certainly incorporate that into this project due to the nature, size, and so forth. But it does study all of those different elements.
any idea of a timetable for something like that?
It is about 9 months from start to finish. And it could be longer depending on the additional public input elements that we include in it.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that. Any other comments? Commissioner Traffus?
Yes, Madam Chair. Ms. Goodroad, with respect to what we're voting on tonight, the zoning changes, could you say a little bit about how those specific changes are known now, even though the process you just described is quite extensive
Yeah.
in the future?
Correct. So part of the reason for moving forward with the application now is to inform the land use to then inform the study of the AUAR. The rezoning, the zoning takes place once actual preliminary and final plats are prepared. But in order for us to pass this on to the Met Council is going to want to see that we're planning for consistency with our comprehensive plan.
Thank you.
So it's a flow question on that. It's just the overall flow. So this isn't racing ahead with one section before we know the other. It's normal flow.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. Commissioner Kaluza?
Thank you, Madam Chair. On kind of what's in front of us tonight, this is not the next step to breaking ground. This is the process that we go through. And, property, the comprehensive plan's been talked about, and it's a 10-year process. And we spend a lot of time on that. The city staff spends years to prepare. I mean, it is over a year-long process. The Met Council takes a while to review it. All the neighboring communities review it. But it's over 10 years, and we're kind of approaching the end of the current comprehensive plan, and things have changed. The city's grown, I think, faster than any of us thought. you know, when I was growing up here in Lakeville, the city has changed a lot. One of the things with having a well-run city and a really great school district is other people want to move here. And the city looks very different when I went, you know, than when I went to Lakeville High School. We've added tens of thousands of people, and we develop in response to more people wanting to move here because of the schools and because of the great quality of life we provide. I look at this property and I look at what is around it, especially looking north of it. The gravel pit is now being developed. We've added the Authentics building and other commercial development just north of this. It is, in my mind, kind of logically makes sense that this is kind of one of the next things that is moving forward. And we as the Planning Commission have to look at what's in front of us. And what's in front of us is a request from a property owner to look at their property and to consider a comprehensive plan and a zoning amendment. And that is the step that we have to take before they bring anything in front of us. And then we have to judge with what they're bringing in front of us. Does that meet the standards of Lakeville? And then the city council makes that decision as well. And so I am supportive of what is in front of us today. I appreciate Director Goodroad addressing the question about the roads. That when I saw, that was a concern of mine too. But you know, that's just kind of for demonstration purposes how you would get to the, you know, County Road 70. This city, in my 10 years on the Planning Commission and in my nearly 40 years in this city, we don't use eminent domain. We're not a kind of city that does that to make things easier for the city or easier for the developer. The city is one that respects property rights, and I'm very comfortable moving forward with this next step. And I think that there's a long way to go, and I look forward to, you know, what eventually gets brought to us in the future. But what could possibly be in the future is not before us now. It's looking at rezoning and a comprehensive plan amendment. And it's a comprehensive plan that we are very close to the end to. And I think if we didn't make changes now, the next time that the city's comprehensive plan gets updated, I think that, you know, it would be updated anyways. And so I am supportive of this, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. We have other comments? Please, go ahead, Mr. Commissioner
Madam
Swain.
Chair, I was just more of a question, but, you know, in the report, it said that as required in consideration of the comprehensive plan amendment, the proposed amendment has been submitted to 10 adjacent government jurisdictions. But we haven't heard back from all of them. It just said that more than half. And is it prudent for us to do anything with it before hearing back from all these other jurisdictions?
Thank you for that question. The Met Council requires us to do a jurisdictional review. In terms like this, I think it's a 6-week threshold. Correct me if I'm wrong.
They have 60 days.
60 days, okay. Oftentimes, it gets lost. The email gets lost. We've heard from more than half. The school district is the only one that we received a comment from. We will wait until we receive an answer or a non-answer before we submit to the Met Council.
Thank you. Commissioner Kaluza?
Kind of on that, is it uncommon that we wouldn't hear back from surrounding municipalities or governments? I feel like that's come up a lot, and the most standard thing is we don't have a comment.
Right. So the majority will not have comment. If they don't have comment, it gets forgotten. So I've put out a feeler reminding them. I asked for it by the 4th of August. We'll put out another feeler. again, before it goes to council, but it's not surprising to me. And I don't think moving forward with a recommendation is out of turn, because I'm not anticipating the remaining adjacent communities to have a comment.
Chair Zimmer, just as a comment, the Met Council will not take action provided the City Council makes a recommendation to approve a comprehensive plan amendment and forward it to Met Council. Met Council will not consider the application complete and take action until either those 60 days have passed from when the notice was sent out, or all of those jurisdictions have responded to whether they have comments or not. So everybody does have that full opportunity to provide comment, but it is pretty uncommon that we do receive comments on these. Keep in mind, they're going to Rosemount, the city of Empire, Burnsville, Apple Valley. It's all of our adjacent jurisdictions. So that is kind of what the typical situation is with a comp plan amendment.
Thank you, Ms. Jensen. Do we have further comments from commissioners?
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Kaluza.
are you ready for a motion?
I believe we're ready for a motion at this point.
Well, I motion to recommend to City Council approval of the Tradition Development Comprehensive Plan Amendments and the Zoning Map Amendment, and approval of the findings of fact dated August 7th, 2025.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on this item. Would ask Ms. Erickson to please take the roll.
Kaluza?
Aye.
Zimmer?
Aye.
Eink?
Aye.
Sweeney?
Aye.
Traffus?
Aye.
Duckworth?
Aye.
Thank you so much. And Mr. Stutz, thank you for the really thorough presentation. I'm hopeful that it answers some questions for people. And thanks to everyone who came here and participated today. The scope and breadth of what the Planning Commission deals with is very different from what the City Council deals with. And that's where the lines are drawn. So we appreciate everyone's input here. Thank you so much.
Just so everybody knows, it takes a 4/5 vote of the City Council to approve this going forward.
The next item on the agenda is item number 8. It's the Dakota Waste Solutions. This is a public hearing to consider the application of Dakota Waste Solutions and Olam Holdings for a comprehensive plan amendment to bring approximately 120 acres of land into the current municipal urban services area, the MUSA, a comprehensive plan amendment to re-guide property from office park to warehouse light industrial district, and a zoning map amendment to rezone property from OP office park to district, office park district to I-1 light industrial district. We have here to present, Mr. Brandt is going to introduce the item for us. And I think people are moving their conversations outside the room, which is very helpful, so we can move on to the next item. Thank you. Please go ahead, Mr. Brandt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Mike Brandt with Kimley Horn. I represent the Dakota Waste Solutions property on the south side of 215th. What we're proposing here is, with Dakota Waste Solutions, is moving the current wood chip processing facility on the north side of 215th that you really see from County Road 70 to the south side of the road, along with other operations to take organic waste, mainly it's expired food product that's been packaged, depackage it and compost it, and recycle it pretty much and bring it back into composting that citizens can use for gardens, potting plants, or different things. It's kind of a unique process. It would not be taking meat or food waste from restaurants. It'd be really taking expired vegetables and plant material from the grocery stores and local commercial establishments like that. We're in the process of getting an MPCA permit. That process has been started with the MPCA, which is required. That takes roughly in the neighborhood of 8 to 12 months to get, along with we're going through the process also with Dakota County to get licensing and permitting through there as well. So we're at the first step of this process with the city, and I've been working with the city for, I don't know, 15 months. It's been a while. But we are progressively moving forward with this type of project and looking for support for that.
Thank you so much. And we have a presentation from Ms. Goodroad, who's been very busy this evening.
Thank you, Chair, members of the Commission. So Dakota Waste Solutions LLC and Olam Holdings One LLC have applied for a comprehensive plan and rezoning amendments. The property is outlined in red. And so there's a couple of things at play. As Mr. Brandt said, Dakota Waste Solutions is moving their operations from the north side of 215th to 40 acres to the south that they own. They have submitted their development applications, so those are under review, and it's going to take some time for that in-depth review. But because of the infrastructure improvements that are going to occur on 215th Street, we wanted to separate out this land use change, which is a very simple land use change, and bring these properties into the MUSA because they are going to be receiving services and they're going to be assessed for them. And so this needs to happen. We ended up including the Olam Holdings properties. We just kind of tacked that on to this application. You recently went through an AUAR. They have submitted the first step in their development plans, a sketch plan. Now, a sketch plan is reviewed internally by staff so that we can work out issues and concerns with their site plan. They will be preparing a preliminary plat soon, so that will be coming for you. And then there is this kind of exception property. I've worked with the property owners. I've kept them up to speed as things are progressing on the Olam Holdings property, and I asked them if they wanted to be part of this amendment, and you'll see why in a second when I switch the slide, and they agreed and signed on to that. So you can see at the top of the screen, these properties are split in terms of their land use. The north portion of the properties are guided OP, Office Park, and the south portion of the properties are guided Warehouse Light Industrial. And so that is only for what's on the screen, these portions. So the request really is to re-guide these OP pieces to Warehouse Light Industrial. So the properties are one consistent land use. In reality, it's not a major change. The OP zoning district is very similar in uses to the I-1 district. So it's not a radical change. We're not going to have weird uses because of that change. The other change is 3 of the properties are in expansion area B and need to be moved into current. And again, because we are doing this improvement along 215th Street, utilities will be provided, so they need to be identified as in the current MUSA. So this is a much simpler, much more straightforward application, but does require a public hearing. Again, we are working with the properties on the assessment and are meeting with them the end of August. Again, rezoning is required for the consistency, and you can again see that the zoning is split following the land use, OP as a zoning district in I-1, and we're simply trying to make that all consistent. So that is, in a nutshell, this amendment to the MUSA, the land use, and the zoning changes. And I stand for any questions, and this too requires a public hearing.
Thank you so much for your comments to both of you. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone that wishes to speak on this issue? Please come forward. I don't have any other names on a list.
Madam Chair, seeing no one come forward, I motion to close the public hearing.
No, I second that.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of closing the public hearing, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The public hearing is now closed. We'll move forward to comments from planning commissioners on this issue.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Traffus.
A question for Ms. Goodroad. Mr. Brandt mentioned the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. Could they make a decision or take some action that would delay or change these plans?
I don't believe so. No. Their review is probably going to take longer than the city's review when it comes to their development application, just because that agency, it's a large application, and that agency is notorious for taking its time. So the development plans, which will consist of a plan unit development because of the unique uses, and a preliminary plat and ultimately a final plat, those different applications will come before Planning Commission probably early fall onto City Council with a requirement that they receive the MPCA licenses. So we're going to track a little faster than them.
Okay, thank you.
My only comment, and I went out to look at this, seems like we're moving in the right direction to keep things moving along here, and thank you, Mr. Brandt, for coming forward. I think we were ready to entertain a motion if there's no one who wants to make any other comments.
Well, Madam Chair, I make a motion to recommend to the City Council approval of the Dakota Waste Solutions LLC and OLAM Holdings 1 LLC comprehensive plan amendments in the zoning map amendment and approval of the findings of fact dated August 7th, 2025.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Erickson, would you please take the roll?
Zimmer?
Aye.
Eink?
Aye.
Swaney?
Aye.
Traffus?
Aye.
Duckworth? Aye. Kaluza?
Aye.
Thank you so much, everyone. Mr. Brandt, thank you again for your work and your bonding time with the city staff, since it seems like it's going to go for a while. I don't know if we have any other staff notices. Ms. Jensen, perhaps I didn't ask this question when the tradition folks are going forward. When will the two pieces go forward to City Council?
Chair, commission members, the Dakota Waste item will go on the 18th. The tradition, I'm not certain, and the tree preservation will be on the 18th.
And the what?
The tree preservation will be on the 18th.
Okay. All right. With that, thank you so much for your service and your first time meeting, Commissioner Duckworth. Happy to have you join us.
Thank you.
We are adjourned.